Got it. We are live in the Quiz Dome with the doctor of all knowledge of all things physical therapy. And he doesn't claim he's not a legal expert on nutrition, but he is a nutrition nut, and you'd be crazy nuts not to listen to him. With all that being said, the main man is here, Ben Quist.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Oh my gosh.
You deserve it, man. You're a star.
I got a lot to live up to, man.
You do.
Folks. Yeah, no, I like your caveat too. I'm not a dietitian. I'm just very interested in the topic of nutrition.
That's right.
I find it absolutely fascinating. So take my advice for what it's worth.
That's right. Excellent. How's your week?
Pretty good. Everything's going well. Yep. Glad to have the weekend. The weather's beautiful here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So definitely planning outdoor activities.
And speaking of outdoor activities, I did a morning Jeremiah boot camp out on the platform this morning, the 7:00 class. Margot and I attended. It was a good attendance. It was tough. It was really good. So it was great. Did a little sauna after. That was good.
Go in the sauna?
Yeah. Yes. So I'm healthy as heck and ready to go. Thus the big introduction.
Good. I know. I can tell that your pipes have been cleaned. Your sweat has sweat out. Yeah.
Circulation's flowing.
Coffee has been ingested. So
yes,
good.
I'm working on that. But Ben, you and I last week we talked about a lot of things, but one of them was I asked about eating fish, and the question came because, well, again, it's Saturday morning following a Friday night fish fry in Wisconsin, which is a tradition, almost a religion in itself. And we talked about fish, and I know we've touched on it before, but you said that's a whole segment. So let's talk about fish and the good, the bad, and the myths that aren't exactly true about fish.
Yeah, no, fish is a really interesting meat source because it is. When anybody thinks about, like, when you see what's on the menu at any restaurant or what people are serving their families, it usually is comprised of a couple different types of meat. It's either chicken, pork, beef, or some type of fish, right? I mean,
right.
That's kind of like the American menu.
Right.
And I don't think anybody, including medical practitioners and, dietitians, everyone always holds fish up as being healthier than the other forms of meat, so it's interesting to me, is that really true? Or is it just certain types of fish? Or, so like all those questions start to come into play. And I do think it's a broader thought process too, as far as meat in general. When I look at like trying to get something out of the plant world, it's not meat-based. I try to get things that are unprocessed, things that do not have lots of chemicals in them. And I would put the same thing to meat. When you're trying to get a piece of meat, you're trying to get something that has as little chemicals, as little medications, different things that they use in the meat, and that it is as unprocessed as possible, other than obviously heating it to cook it. Mm-hmm. So that's where the problems become apparent with meat in that entire category. So it's not just fish, it's all of the different meat sources, is that we just can't get the same kind of meat that we used to be able to get. The meat that your grandfather, your grandfather's chicken is very different than the chicken of today, or the beef that we're eating is very different than the beef in the 1950s and the 1920s and so on. And nowhere is that more apparent than fish. The fish that people used to eat, that they caught out of pristine streams and lakes and pulled out of the ocean that wasn't polluted, was a very different animal than it is today. And so that's where it comes in. And I think everybody thinks I'm anti-meat. I'm not. I just think meat is a tough category because, first of all, it is greatly overconsumed by Americans. It doesn't need to be consumed every single meal. And secondarily, it is just really hard to find quality meat. So let's dive into that on fish now. So,
Okay. Cool.
So you immediately think of fish. You think of the fact that they're everyone orders like salmon, right?
Right.
So the thing that's happened with fish is that they've started to farm it, which is kind of like the same thing they've done with the beef and the pork and the chickens. They've started to farm them in a commercial for-profit setting, and then all the things about having healthy animals goes right out the window.
So what is a fish farm? I mean, is it just private ponds or small man-made lakes where they grow the fish? I mean, basically, is that how it works, Ben?
I mean, it can be that, but the salmon you get at like Costco or something
Yeah.
that's farmed, typically those are in gigantic pens, in a body of water. So picture an enormous pen structure with thousands and thousands of fish in that structure, all stressed out because they're all packed in there, crammed in there, just like the chickens are in their little teeny cages, crapping on top of each other. It is the same kind of scenario. They're all sitting in their own filth in this pen, and then the worst part about it is, typically fish swim around and they eat other fish, or they maybe eat, some fish eat algae, and these fish aren't eating that anymore. They are now eating like pellets, they're eating like wheat, or I don't know what they feel.
Whatever they give them.
Fish flakes. I don't know what they're feeding, but they're certainly not eating their natural diet. So when you take the salmon, which got the reason people say fish is better because it is high in an omega-3 fatty acid, so they think it's better for you because it has these fats. But when you farm it, the things that the salmon ate to get the omega-3s, they're not eating anymore, which so they no longer have like that good.
Oh, so that their source of what they consume and turn into a good source for us, they don't have access to that source.
Yeah,
So
they're eating a bunch of, and it's so funny when you get a piece of farmed salmon, you can tell. And I had a piece of salmon because many times I'm at a restaurant, I'll be eating, I'm like, oh my God, what is the least not toxic choice on this menu? And many times, salmon is a little bit of a safer bet. And there was something on the menu called Scottish salmon. So I'm like, okay, well, this has got to be wild caught, right? Why would they call it Scottish salmon? So then I asked the guy, like, is this a farmed piece of salmon? And he's like, oh yeah, it's farmed. So like, what is the difference between taking a pen and having it in the waters outside of Scotland versus having the pen outside of the waters here in the United States? There's like no difference. Like, who cares if it's Scottish salmon, right?
Right.
It's farmed,
Right.
from Scotland. It was so silly and funny, but I thought it was really funny. They were really proud that it was Scottish salmon, so like it had some special properties, or maybe they have a different kind of fish flake that they're throwing into the pen to feed it. It just, so yeah, so there are some inherent problems with that. So if you are going to eat, in my opinion, if you are going to eat fish, it's better to try to get wild caught fish.
Okay.
Because of the fact that then many of the circumstances that made those fish healthy to begin with are going to continue to make them healthy because they're doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So that's problem one, is the farming. Problem two is the pollution. So fish are swimming around in very different environments than they used to. And, and this is very well known. Everybody knows this. Even like pregnant women aren't supposed to have swordfish or limit tuna, like all those kinds of things, because there are so many toxins that are built up in these fish. So if you're looking at your fish source, typically you want to try to eat at the lower end of the chain of fish, and by that I mean, typically there's like a little fish, like a sardine or something.
I knew you were going to say a sardine.
I was going to come in here. The little fish is eating like the algae and then, or whatever plants or whatever those things eat, which is, by the way, how they get the omega-3s. So then a bigger fish comes, eats the sardine, right? And then that's how that fish gets the omega-3s, because it ate the littler fish. But any toxins the littler fish get stuck in that fish, and then a bigger fish eats that fish, and all the toxins. So it's called biomagnification, that every time you work up the food chain to these higher level, bigger fish, and tuna, from what I can tell, are gigantic. They're enormous fish, and that's why they're so valuable to fishermen. But they are like way up here. So all those toxins have just magnified to this fish, and then we're eating it, and there are very clear recommendations on really how much of that you should even consume, because you can poison yourself.
Really?
The other thing, here you are trying to do something healthy. Well, tuna's good for you. I should eat that. I gotta get my sushi, and then you end up poisoning yourself. So it's like,
I love your ignorant dork voice.
This is how we roll. Oh, that's good for me. Oh, it's more complicated than it looks when you're trying to actually get something that is healthier. Because I don't know how you feel. I don't think anyone eats fish for the flavor, right? I mean,
right. You say
I'd much rather have a hamburger or a piece of pork. I mean, I would never eat fish by choice.
Right.
So fish is not even going to be healthier for you. Why the heck are we even eating to begin with?
Well, some people love, again, this is how you cook. We haven't even gotten to how you cook it yet, but some people love how it's cooked and prepared. And I know frying, obviously, but like grilling fish, people, I know people who do, and last night, I'll get into that, but people grill, the fish and different kind of fish, and it can be delicious. But the first thing everybody says is, "Oh, it's really tasty. It doesn't taste fishy."
Yep.
No one says about beef, "Oh, it's really great because it doesn't taste beefy."
It doesn't taste. It doesn't taste right. No,
the bacon
totally
doesn't
not.
taste like bacon.
Yeah,
It's great.
it's a very, very good point. But that's kind of like, if fish kind of tastes nasty to begin with, and we're trying to prepare it in ways that make it not taste so bad, like battering it up and frying it and make it, like all the things you do to make it taste better, if you're going to eat fish, you might as well follow some different guidelines to really try to get the healthiest piece of fish you can get. So we've covered one already. Like farmed is possibly preferable or better than farmed is worse and wild is better than, so that's one rule of thought when you eat fish. The other one that we talked about just briefly is eating some of those fish that are lower on the chain of command, so to speak, the little guys. And I've done entire episodes on sardines, and you're a big baby, and you're like,
I tried this. I spat it out. I was like, oh
you are such a baby. Oh my gosh. I can't believe that. So for your viewers, sardines actually don't taste that bad. Jack's just a baby.
Well, this coming from a man who on a regular basis drinks smoothies that he himself rates as the C- in flavor. Now, anybody who has that, you disqualify yourself as a food taster. So if you can handle C- shakes on a regular basis, of course you're going to like sardines. You probably put them in your shake.
They're not fishy. They're actually not that fishy. Everyone always. My thought was that sardines would taste disgusting because that's the common knowledge on the street is that they're the grossest of fish. And I'll eat them right out of the tin. They actually sometimes taste really, really good depending on what the preparation is and the spices in there. And so I would encourage your audience to experiment and not listen to your comments about the sardine taste. But to experiment with some of the smaller fish. It doesn't have to be sardines. There's many different variations of small fish that are super inexpensive. They come in tins. They're cooked in the tins. They're heated at real high temperatures, which isn't great. But they're in these tins, so they're very travel ready, and they are a fantastic source of protein, many different minerals that you need, and since they are on the low end of the food chain and they are those algae plant eaters, they're high in omega-3 fatty acids, which is why everyone says fish is good for you. So fish that are high in that particular, and they are very, very low in toxins. So
what are some of the other fish on the good side of the food chain besides sardines? You said there are many.
Any of the shorter lived fish, so salmon actually comes out pretty good too. So if you look at the consumer reports, which anyone can simply look up with a Google search, and they rate the different fish and the different amount of toxics and metals like mercury and the different things that they have, salmon came out pretty darn good. So salmon, if it's wild caught again, why would you eat a piece of salmon if it's not good for you? Because I don't think salmon tastes very good.
No, it depends on how you prepare it. So here's the thing. All right, I'm going to interrupt because salmon. I was out. I have a client who he's a fisherman. He just loves the sport of fishing, mostly catch and release. However, half dozen times a year, he takes out a charter on Lake Michigan. And he asked me to go with him. And I've never gone salmon fishing besides with him. And I go once a year. So about a month ago, we went out and you get a license for a day. You can catch up to 5 per person. And that's your limit. So we caught 20 fish in like 2 hours when you're done. Now, is that wild caught salmon? Is that what you consider to be good for me? Or is there, because Lake Michigan has its problems too, right? So if it's coming out of Lake Michigan, does that take away all the good parts of it or not? How do you rate that?
You'd have to look into that, but you're exactly right. You have to really look at where the wild caught fish came from. So as you said, Lake Michigan's a huge body of water, but it does have some problems. I know there are posted right where I've done that before as well. There's little signs that tell you how much of the fish you're allowed to eat, right? They don't eat than this amount per week of this particular fish type, because they're worried about you getting too many toxins. So you would have to research that a little bit, but the more pristine the waters are where the fish are coming from, the better for the wild caught fish. So then there's, again, the whole inherent problem of where do you get that fish from, the wild caught fish from these really pristine waters that hardly exist in the world anymore. And then to you and onto your dinner table in a fashion that is affordable, and
Right.
it's really becoming something where unless you want to spend a lot of money on the fish that you're buying, it is really kind of outside of the reach for people for, convenience sake, affordability, and everything else to try to, and also who wants to be researching which, I got to be really careful about the fish that came out of this particular river or that one, and that's why I have kind of deferred to some of the smaller little baby fish because there are many fish that simply aren't farmed at all. They don't farm sardines, right? They don't farm any of those little type fish. Like they there's no farms I know of. Maybe they do somewhere, but it's not something that they're doing in a broad way to make money. So, and that's where I think getting some of those smaller, littler guys is again a way where you can like circumvent the toxicity issue, and then the affordability is super good and they're really convenient. They're so.
So are anchovies? I don't like anchovies, but are they? They're a little fish, right? Aren't they supposed to be little or so? All right.
They're fish too.
Okay. So you said I interrupted you on the salmon, but so you said sardines, salmon actually come out pretty well. Was it you? Not only are tuna big, but it was either I believe it was. It was either you or Jeremiah. We're talking about tuna, saying that it has a lot of metal in it. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, because it's a long-lived fish, so and it also eats a lot of other fish, so it is at the very top of like the toxicity measurements. So a lot of those big, because they're eating all the little fish and they're getting all the toxins that have built up, over the time of doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, mercury is one that is typically cited with tuna as being pretty high. So like your sushi grade tuna or the different things that people. It is also still high in omega-3 fatty acids, and it's also not farmed, right? You don't farm tuna, but it doesn't matter just because of the biomagnification of the fact that tuna ate so many other polluted fish before you're eating it.
So the fish that as a kid watching TV and you'd see commercials for Chicken of the Sea or Starkist was the other, they were all tuna. So all those. We were brought up like tuna. It's good for you. It's this.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to remember there are several different kinds of tuna. So the sushi grade tuna you get at your restaurant, or the fried piece of tuna, they like sear it or whatever. It's very delicious. I actually think tuna tastes really good. Is different potentially than the tuna that comes in the can. There are different fish types in that category. So some of them, you'd have to do a little bit of research on that. When I was researching the sardine video that we did, we were talking about canned tuna and, you can't put it in the exact same category as like regular gigantic tuna that are swimming out that you would get at a restaurant per se. So, so that's something that your audience would have to research a little bit.
Okay. So it's funny, not funny, but it's interesting that everything we talk about diet or nutrition wise, it's always more complicated than you think. It's not fish good, something bad. There's always more to it. I mean, unless you want to just be led around by your nose, you got to do a little bit of research on your own to figure it out.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And the final thought on fish, and this is again meat in general, is it is extremely well known that when you cook meat at high temperatures, toxins are produced. You can oxidize some of the fats and different things and make them not as good. You can, there are AGEs that are formed, HC, homocysteine, I can't even pronounce it, but there are different things that are produced when you cook something at high temperature, especially if it's charred. So I think grilling is the most tasty way to cook any piece of meat. But unfortunately, grilling is super high temperature and it chars the meat. And it is one that it creates a lot more carcinogens than lower temperature cooking methods. So again, if you're going to have you go through the effort of getting a wild caught piece of salmon, and then you go and you grill it, and you create all these carcinogens on the exterior, from grilling it, you'd probably better off doing a lower heat method like baking or something like that. So yeah, so you're right. It is super, super complicated. And that goes for all meats. Any tissue that you're going to cook, when you cook it at high temperature, you damage it, and it creates different things that aren't good for us to ingest. So take that.
Of all that ranks up there, Ben. that takes me back to when you said, I don't know if you remember your top 10 worst foods to eat. And of course, number one was my favorite food, which is pizza. That just about killed me. Now, you just brought up killer comment number two of all time from Ben Quist, which is don't grill. And the way I grill to keep the flavor in. So in a lot of meats, you sear each side so that it holds and the cooking stays inside the piece of meat and it tastes wonderful. But now you're saying by searing it, it's a bad thing.
Look into that. Look into healthier ways to grill. If you marinate the meat, it helps to prevent the compounds from forming. Like there's different ways to start that, but just be aware that high heating methods can cause carcinogens on the product that you're heating if it's meat. If you heat vegetables at high heat, like you grill vegetables, that doesn't happen. It's something in the animal flesh that causes that. So people that are grilling broccoli or cauliflower on the grill, you grill away. You char the crap out of that stuff. It's not going to hurt you.
What a ripoff. Oh, man.
I know.
It's nature's ripoff.
I eat a lot less meat than I did. And I put meat more in a once in a while category or a dessert category, for me, because it's just really hard to find it. Pizza's the same thing, Jack. Like, food is too tasty and yummy to be like, okay, I'm going to be this pristine, puritanical eater, and I'm never going to do this and never do that. The thing that I always argue when I talk to clients, I advise is like, okay, well, 80% of the time, you're just eating for sustenance, right? You're trying to get to work and you're trying to get your breakfast down. So does your breakfast have to be this opulent, fat laden, sugar processed, gigantic muffin from Starbucks? So can't we do something a little healthier for that meal? But then on the weekend with your friends, have something that is fun to eat, like pizza or, a grilled hamburger. Like, who cares? Like, you have to live life. But it's just, if you put, like, in my opinion, if you put like 8% of your foods in that healthier category, and like 20% or 10% are in that little bit more, riskier or dangerous category, you're going to probably be a lot better off.
Okay. Well, it'll help you to know, Ben, that since you've been talking today, one of our big fans, who's also a musical superstar, cut her own album. Kelly Dupuis Schmidt said, "So true." And read the ingredients always. She's right on it, and she's wonderful, and she's Fox. So things are. If you follow Kelly, you're doing the right thing. I can tell you that. All right. So I got a couple more fish questions for you. Got like another minute or two?
Yep.
Okay. The big thing, one of the big things now in New York City, the place where all the restaurants are the cutting edge sushi. The instead of remember when dry aged steaks became the big thing, and that was like the big hot trend. Now the big trend in New York City, and I'm sure it's going to travel inland, is dry aged branzino. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Are you familiar with the branzino fish? I've seen it.
Heard of it, like once or twice. Yeah,
it's like a fish that's as big as a plate, but they serve it to you. I mean, the head's still. I mean, you pretty much they bring it and they open it up, I think, and then you eat from the inside. But it's that, and that's like getting the big bucks. And they say it aged even. And when you think of fish, what's the first thing I always think of? Fresh fish, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. I'm sure they know what they're doing.
Well, maybe for taste, but okay. All right. Well, that's what I have. So if we can just shift over, you mentioned something really early on, Ben, which you always do, and then I write it down, so I got to come back to it, which is you mentioned whether it's fish or any other kind of meat. Now, a couple things. The grass-fed, when you see grass-fed beef, or is that a real deal, or is that like just bullshit marketing? Not that marketing is ever bullshit. I'm a marketing guy.
I looked into that a little bit because I wanted to do an episode on that because I like that this is bullshit. And I have to look into that more. I'm wary of anything produced on a large scale.
Okay.
I'm sure, and I have bought ground chuck and different things for my children. I don't really eat red meat that much because of its inherent danger of heart disease. But like they do, so there are tons of places you can order that I think appear to be reputable, where they're like large farms where the beef is still out there roaming the pastures, doing the thing that made it maybe a little more healthy to begin with, which is eating the grass, which brings in all of the good stuff into the
Mhm.
cow that you then get from eating the cow meat. And it's so fascinating. So have you heard of vitamin K?
No,
Vitamin K, K2 has
K2 I've heard of.
K2, K has a bunch of different variants, but it's so funny. Like it's a hot button vitamin right now. You know how like vitamin D was like, we've gone through all the vitamins. Like there's vitamin C and then there's vitamin E, and then they kind of like poo-poo. Oh, vitamin E actually causes heart disease, but vitamin K is one of the that they're really looking at right now for bone health, heart health, blah blah blah. And you can get it from cheese and meat, and it's so funny. You know where the cheese and meat, where they get it from the grass. So again, if you are going to eat meat that hasn't been eating the grass, you're losing one of the most valuable components in meat, which is getting that vitamin, which we need.
Mm-hmm.
It was,
We got somebody who's asking the question, Kelly again, the hot rock star,
Yeah.
country rock star. How do you feel about all the ketos? Did you say keto or keto? What has it been? Keto?
diets, keto diets.
Keto. Yeah. Is that a whole other topic for another day?
I can briefly summarize it.
Go ahead. Would you?
So ketogenic diets are diets that are very low carbohydrate, and they're very high in fat, and many times high in protein as well. Most of the experts that I respect, so the PhDs that are actually doing the research on longevity, the individuals that are, doing the studies, and just my own personal observations watching, people over 25 years try out all these different diet fads and things. The ketogenic diet is the diet of death. It is one of the worst things you can possibly do for your body long term, in my opinion. There are certain medical instances where they use it as a medical treatment therapy for certain disease processes, but I can't imagine a reason in which someone would want to go ketogenic for a long period of time. Especially the type of ketogenic diets that eliminate vegetable mass and, things of that nature, because it's frankly hard to get a lot of the good carbohydrates that the body was designed to eat when you're obviously on a diet that excludes carbohydrate. So
Right.
So yeah, high protein diet. I mean, Dr. Walter Longo, he was, on the Netflix special. He's the guy that did all the mice and ages them. And there was Zac Efron was on that special with this other big built health expert. Not the other expert has very big muscles. And the Dr. Longo, he's an Italian researcher, was talking to them, and he was talking to them how protein intake, really high protein intake, ages the body faster and causes a lot of inherent problems. So one of the things that, and you can see both like Zac Efron and the guy are like, oh, darn it, dang it.
Yeah. That's how I am when you're talking.
So
I know that face.
But many times you just have to think of it. The diets that produce large muscles or produce great growth in the human body might be good for bodybuilding, or it might be good for, maybe there's a diet that's good for fat loss, but many times those diets are not good for long-term health. So you want to pick the diet approach where it is going to be good for your long-term health and longevity, in addition to supporting muscle growth, in addition to doing all the other things, and it's my own personal belief, and also many of the greatest experts in the world, that the ketogenic diets for the regular population is one of the worst routes you possibly could take.
Okay.
And I'll finish on one other statement. So there's a cardiologist I really respect, Dr. Josh Liberman. And so, Josh knows I'm super into heart disease. And I was asking him, like, Josh, so he's been a cardiologist for a long period of time. I really respect him. He's got a great mind. Like, Josh, who have you seen in your practice who dies of heart attacks more? Like, so you got different people, because there are people who think ketogenic diets are the way to go for heart disease too. Like, who doesn't make it? Who are the ones that just keel over and die of heart attacks in your practice? And he's like, it's all the Atkins people, it's the ketogenic people. Like, he and there's boots on the ground. This guy is actually mission. He's seeing, okay, this person is doing this, high protein, high fat diet, which is purportedly healthy for what he's trying to do, and then he dies of a heart attack. So it's just interesting to me. So I try to take all the information I can and then synthesize it, and then do it on myself. But that was
you digest it. Haha.
Yes, I digest it, but it's a really long answer, so I'm sorry. But
no. Kelly says thank you very much. She appreciates it. All right, one last one. I know you got stuff, but it's meat related, and it's about pork. Now, to me, this is the opposite, but hear me out before you start shaking your head. No, when I was a kid, they would say, and growing up, pork was always the meat you had to be the most careful of. You had to make sure it was thoroughly cooked so you didn't get the dreaded trichinosis. I mean, even as a kid, you knew the trick. You knew the T word. I didn't know what the hell it was, but I knew it was bad. So now I've had recently somebody tell me that since trichinosis was caused because the pig farmers used to literally feed their pigs garbage, they just slop. Anything, so anything went, the pigs would eat anything. And that was why it had to be cooked. So now the pig's diet is much better than it used to be. So trichinosis is not as much of a concern. You heard anything about that? Does it sound like BS to you? Does it matter?
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I think the government sources, and obviously they don't want the pork industry doesn't want anyone getting trichinosis, right? That would not surprise me, cleaning up the feed, but it would also not surprise me at all if the feed that they are feeding them are things that don't normally support good health in a pig. So I mean, that's just my own personal.
Maybe they have all the pigs on the keto. The pigs are on the keto diet.
Yeah, so you see the Netflix special where all the pigs are in this big dark warehouse. There's thousands of them, and they're packed in there, and they're eating each other's tails off, and they have lesions all over their bodies, and they have to inject them with antibiotics constantly because they're all getting sick because they're under such stress and in such bad circumstance. You're like, is that the type of meat you want to eat?
No.
Very different than little old Bessie the pig that used to live on the family farm. You cook her up and she's delicious. Doing her thing, being a happy pig for her, Then you eat a nice big old slab of Bessie. Like that's, in my mind, that's the way to go. We should also have family farms again, just cook. But that's the inherent problem with meat. So
yeah, you should know the animal you eat is what you're saying. You should have it, name it, and know it before you kill it. Eat it. All right.
They're doing that. They're buying a cow at a local farm. Like I know, like my neighbors down the street do that. They buy a cow. They go visit the cow. They see the cow. They see what the cow's eating the grass. And then the cow eventually gets butchered, and then they have meat for a really long time. So
4-H county fairs. People bid on the whatever. Where I think it's cows and pigs. I think, but anyway, all right. Well, we went all over as usual, Ben. I've learned you could never be an Olympic swimmer because they all have to stay in their lane. And I asked one question, and you're over 3 lanes, then you come back another, and then I throw fuel on the fire because you say something that makes me think of something else, and then I have to ask it. So
it's your fault.
Yes, yes. I've heard that a lot in my life, and I'm good with that. Well, thank you very much. As usual, you are full of information and a fun way. What's going on at the gym? I heard this morning Jeremiah was talking about you're teaming up with Mel's Charities to do a big event that's open to the public.
Yep, super excited about this. So we are doing an event in August called Muscles for Mel's, and so we are offering on one of the days. I can't remember the exact date.
Saturday the 24th.
24th. So we're having a kind of like 5 different group exercise classes offered. One's like a boot camp, one's like a dance class, one's a yoga class, one's a senior class, where people can sign into the class. And this is community members, this is our gym members, anyone can sign up for this. And it's $20 to take a class. That money 100% goes towards Mel's to support their charity, which is a charity for disabled individuals. So we're going to have those classes. And then as soon as the classes are done, because they're all at the same time, the Special Olympics is having a powerlifting event at Foreman Fitness Grafton, which I think is going to be awesome. One other gym did a Muscles for Mel's event last year, and the gym owner told me that it was the highlight of the entire event when these guys came out, different individuals with their disabilities, and they were hamming it up, and they were having fun, and they were doing their bench press or their deadlift. So it's just going to be a really fun event to support Mel's charity, in addition to support the Special Olympics athletes. So I am really excited about it. So we are going to do our best to get information out to the community so people can come and help support that.
It's a great thing. I follow Mel's quite a bit, and we've had, AJ. That's how I met AJ through Mel. Mel introduced us, recommended AJ to the program. Yep. Mel's, the Muscles for Mel's, those guys go to the Special Olympics has a powerlifting competition. They did really well at the state powerlifting. It's just fantastic. And another thing that people might not know about Mel's, we're located here in Ozaukee County in Wisconsin. All of the money that Mel's raises goes to events or people, or whether they do special needs and also memorial scholarships are their two big things. All stays right here within Ozaukee County's borders.
Yeah.
So everything, their big, one of their sayings is, what's raised here stays here. So
it's an amazing charity. He's done such a good job. I think his actual name is Tom, but
yeah,
it's Mel.
Tom Stanton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like,
Yeah.
I think he goes by either name.
Yeah, he does. He's known as, it's a long story, but I've known Mel since I was going into college. But he got the name because he was he would imitate the guy Mel Tillis, the famous stutterer who the country singer, and
Okay.
so these people started calling him Mel. So that's how he got the name. Anyway, Mel's Charities, great organization, really deserving, and really excited about that. Saturday the 24th. So Jeremiah's been telling the classes about it and saying everybody spread the word. It's a great organization. It'll be a great day.
Yep.
And-
And next week we're starting to market that for real. So they'll be in the newspaper. You'll have QR codes you can scan to sign up, or even if you just want to make a small donation to Mel's, we are matching whatever donation that our members do. So our goal is that through those classes we raise $1,000, and we will match whatever amount our membership raises. So Form of Fitness will then match that.
Fantastic.
It's not like the local grocery store where they round up your thing and then tell how much money they donated to charity. It's actually like our money. We're gonna put our money in there too.
Ouch.
Sorry. That always bugs me. Round up charity. And they're celebrating how much money they raise for charity. Okay, whatever.
All right. So that's great. That's an event. Anything, you have any summer specials going on at the gym for people thinking about joining up?
Not really right now. It's just the regular old. We always do trial passes, things of that nature, to come in and kind of check it out. But it's a slower time of year for us for membership typically. But although we've been seeing amazing growth this year, so we are just so happy that the community is supporting us, and the comeback after COVID was amazing. So, but but no specials right now.
Okay. Well, it's a special place to go. This morning, I started off with an outdoor workout with a professional trainer who, it's a fun group. And then afterwards I got into the sauna and shower. I mean, it's a great setting, and it makes you get your weekend. Talk about getting your weekend kicked off the right way. Yep. So there. So there's a lot of special things going on. It's just not a special, but it's a special place. Very cool. Well, thanks very much. Appreciate all your insights, and you're putting up with me and your sense of humor, Ben. You're okay. You're okay. And you made Kelly Dupuis Schmidt, who is a country rock star, very happy. I'm sure she'll be maybe send you an autographed guitar or something.
Yeah, sure. All right. Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Take care. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Hey, stay away from the grill unless you
I will.
don't char it.
Just vegetables.
See ya.